What is it?
Well, it's called Randomiser, and it's fitted to the guidance systems and operates under a very complex scientific principle called potluck. Now, no one knows where we're going. Not even the Black Guardian.
Not even us.
Hello and welcome to the Randomiser Podcast. This is episode 14. We've been gone, but we're back. Although for how long remains to be seen. It is January the 20th at time of recording. Probably months before time of release, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I am Tim.
And I am Chaz, and we have been let off for good behaviour. We've been broken out of prison, and we're back, baby.
Since there's another lockdown, and since there's been new Doctor Who, we decided that it was well past time that we made another episode because we got stuff to talk about. So shall we dive on in, mate, and talk about Revolution?
Yeah, sure. I haven't really got much to say about it, but there you go.
Did it fill you with horror and dread, or did you love every minute?
No, actually, I quite liked it. And possibly, I really liked it on the night. I've maybe reassessed my sort of judgment of it, but I haven't, not to the extent of that, it's horrible or anything. It's just a few little things I think, the more I think about it, I think, But there was a lot to like, and there was some bits to dislike, but we'll get to those.
Generally felt a bit unmoved by it. It was all right as it went, fun. Didn't really get caught up in it in any big way. It was kind of lots of little nice moments, and I think it was interesting that I kind of had guessed that Ryan would probably leave. I haven't done a spoiler warning, actually. So spoilers for the Revolution of the Daleks and all Doctor Who that preceded it. And if you hadn't watched that and I just blew Ryan's big departure for you, then I can only apologise. Please send us hate mail at randomiserpodcast@gmail.com.
And send us any mail because we're starved of attention.
Love mail, hate mail, indifference mail.
We need attention, especially me.
We do. I do. I found Ryan's departure a bit drawn out. I knew it was, or suspected it was coming because I'd heard that he had got a role in another TV show, although who knows what's happening with that in pandemic times. But Graham's was a surprise. And it was sort of weirdly also drawn out as an afterthought. Just 13 and Yaz will be very interesting, and don't know and don't want to know if there's going to be anybody else joining them. But I think, that's a sort of shake-up, which will hopefully give it some, we always said that one of the things it suffered from was spreading the plot too thin amongst four main characters.
Totally agree. I'd actually heard that Ryan was leaving to take a job at IKEA.
Oh yeah,
to be among his, to be among his own, but
to be a model.
A model. No, just to be part of the furniture.
Oh, just the Ryan chair back. The Ryan chair gag never gets young.
It never does. I mean, Graham leaving, I wasn't particularly surprised by either of those. Ryan, Tosin Cole basically seemed throughout the entire episode just to be pissed off and didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
He was actually getting on my nerves more so than ever. Graham, Bradley Walsh was okay, but he was sort of just phoning it in. Magic Gill, I thought, was actually a little bit better than, she's been, and hopefully I think her and Jodie, sort of with a bit of breathing room might actually make a pretty good team. It was great seeing Jack back, but of course he dominated most of it as he would. This time, the Trump imitator, as it were, was actually, he kind of made a bit more sense in this one, I suppose. He was quite good, and we had a sort of stand-in, we had another Prime Minister for Britain, this time more in the mould of sort of Priti Patel, I suppose. And I genuinely think that the Junkyard Daleks, it was quite a good concept of, they took the remnants of the old one and built a drone, as it were, although I still don't understand how nobody in Britain remembers Daleks. I actually think that they looked really good. I liked it that they were, obviously, the original Junkyard version was all sort of, soldered together. These look sleek, and they actually genuinely look good. And when they sort of started going red, that was a nice little touch.
Then you knew they were evil.
Yeah, exactly. That and the twirly moustache and black hats on them, that really gave it away. But
that episode where they tied the Doctor to the rail track.
Yeah, exactly. And went, But it was nice seeing them, interact with real Daleks. And it's good to know that, we're kind of not going down the route of, these are going to be the Daleks, because I still think that the RTD sort of design or the upgrade, as it were, works well. So
it's telling that you call them real Daleks.
Yeah, don't mess about with it too much. I don't mind little variations on a theme, but in general, I thought it was a fun episode, quite interesting.
I did think, given that a TARDIS is supposed to be alive to some extent, that the use of the spare TARDIS as a sort of sacrificial trap sort of ducked that issue somewhat. I don't know if there's any kind of canon.
It's quite amusing because I didn't actually think of that until the next day.
That was when I spoiled your fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like, suddenly your entire worldview is shattered. Because I was like, that's quite a reasonably neat scenario. The plot's quite kind of well thought through.
It was.
The Doctor's just killed one of our own sort of kind, as it were.
For tangent of the week, I'm going to tell Chaz something about Santa Claus.
Well, thankfully Christmas was over, so it didn't completely ruin everything. But New Year was going quite well up until then. Then as soon as that happened, we get riots in America. We get we get new strains of COVID.
He's saying they banned the wrong dude from Twitter.
Blame. Yeah, exactly. It's good. It's all his fault.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know what you mean about the sort of Russell T Davies era Daleks being the kind of real ones, and these kind of Dalek of the Week upstarts getting put in their place. But I don't know. It's sort of almost a trend that was set with the bizarre Victory of the Daleks parade of here are the toys you're going to be buying at Christmas.
God, that was so funny when you think about it. Moffat unveils them and everything. It's like, yeah, these are great. And everybody going, no, they're not. They're fucking awful. Yeah. And then sort of, oh no, he's all sort of trying to big them up. And people are going, nope. And then suddenly they're gone. They didn't exist.
Yeah, that was the paradigm of the week. So, do you think they are seeding a kind of Yaz Doctor romantic interest?
Oh, Jesus Christ. They're fucking lampposting. I mean, they're lighthousing it from 1,000 miles away. It's so bloody obvious. And here's the thing, right? I've not got a problem with it. If they really want to go down that road, yeah, fine. You've done it with Doctor and companions before, male and female. So I don't mind it. I just don't honestly see the point of it. I never saw the point of it when it was Rose and the Doctor. It always just seemed on the sort of wrong side of stalkery. In a
just hope it can be good character development and tread some new ground. But I think Martha's character suffered from that, treading some of the same ground as Rose.
I just think that really all this seems, because it seems like you've not got a character for Yaz, so we're going to make her infatuated with the Doctor. Well, surely a bit of, do a bit of work and actually be, if they were to expand on that whole thing from It Takes You Away, was it? No. Can You Hear Me? Where she was, running away to her family and blah, 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 sort of thing on her insecurity. I mean, maybe they can sort of do that thing where, they're, rather than have a full-blown Yaz just loves the Doctor, actually explore it. I believe that she's latching on to the Doctor, maybe because of her insecurity. And that's why, she wouldn't leave, because she couldn't handle the idea the Doctor would abandon her.
Again, as always, it becomes our kind of refrain, really. We hope the writing does it justice. I think this has crystallized for me more and more that Chris Chibnall in particular, but maybe his era as a whole, feels to me slightly like it's following the shapes and the patterns and having the grand ambitions of a lot of previous new Doctor Who, but without quite the skill and panache to pull it off with the kind of aplomb that you kind of need and hope for.
Yeah, I think that's totally his problem. He has got ambition, or he wants
and
to.
Great ideas.
He genuinely wants to. And I'm not normally, I'm not a fan of his, and I'm not particularly taken, but I can see that he's genuinely trying sometimes to do something, but he's just not quite got the skill to do it.
Yeah,
and I feel that that's weird because I watch some of his other stuff, like Broadchurch. He's a good writer and he can come up with really good plots and stuff. But when it comes to Doctor Who, I think he's walking about blind sometimes. I think he forgets that it's entertainment sometimes, and is really determined to get a message across, which is fine, but you can easily make it entertaining and informative.
Such a nuance, because I don't think any of it's out and out bad, terrible, well, except maybe the last 2 minutes, 4:55, which he didn't write. Although, yeah, it's more about that kind of the great ideas sort of fizzle, and the kind of grand ambition doesn't quite have the kind of flesh on the bones to make it really satisfying, I think. But still glad of Doctor Who, and they have begun filming for more, I believe.
It's been filming for a couple of months, I believe. We've got 8 episodes this year, apparently dropping a couple due to COVID, although I had heard that they were dropping a couple of episodes well before the whole COVID excuse, I suppose. So it is a great excuse, COVID. I don't mean that, that's not the case. I'm just saying that for anybody that kind of wants to lay the blame on something, they can basically use COVID for everything. But we're basically getting 8 episodes. That's fine, I suppose.
As long as they don't have an overarching theme of the Doctor being on trial.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, Revolution was fine, and it was fun, and there was some nice bits in it, but I wouldn't say it had my heart aflutter, and in a normal season it would have ranked quite low.
What else did we talk about when we spoke immediately after it? I think we'd liked the prison scenes, but felt the escape was too easy. That's fair enough.
God almighty, Jack turns up and suddenly, boom, he's out. I mean, we were saying that, weren't we, about the prison? It would have been quite nice to see the Doctor attempt to escape and her resolve.
Yeah.
Slowly.
It was nice to see it break her a little bit.
Yeah, because she was obviously, by the time she sort of gets, she was just going through the routine. I mean, this is the Doctor, right? I mean, I've read books, I've seen that, the Doctor's in prison for 100 years and still defiant. Capaldi punched through a wall. It took him nearly, 1 billion years? You know what I mean? It's like, I've had a couple of weeks in space prison and I'm a bit...
Well, I think that the justification is that she comes in sort of broken after the events of Timeless Children. So and that's carried through later on when she's kind of questioning who she is and gets the world's least convincing pep talk from Ryan, I thought.
She also got the world's least convincing comfort from J.K. Rowling.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Maybe they're conversing on Twitter.
But Jack arriving was fun. It was nice to glimpse other recognizable monsters out there in the prison, and then the sort of hamster ball of escapiness was fun.
That was interesting. I did think it would have been, but again, it would have been quite fun because even from the outside, it looked
Shada.
a bit like Shada, and I thought, wouldn't it have been fun to do, because remember, it wasn't a Judoon prison. The Judoon were working for supposedly the Time Lords or the division or whatever.
Group 4 run it.
Yeah, Group 4. So surely that was some sort of Time Lord-esque prison, therefore Shadow. But maybe we'll get something explored, or maybe it'll just be something that's completely ignored.
There could be a whole Cops and Rubbers theme through the next season. They're like,
yeah,
you're doing her only one episode behind.
Yeah, and the TARDIS lights flashing as
well. I mean, it's just, I suppose if you're in the police box, that's going to confuse the cops. But, I had fun with it. I think I haven't rewatched it. I think I'll get back to Jodie's era in due course, because I'm watching with my partner through New Who. We just watched The Name of the Doctor. Wonderful episode. So we have the 50th anniversary special next after a brief detour to Night of the Doctor with Paul McGann.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think we might make an event of it, get some popcorn or something, and try and recreate that feel of watching it in the cinema.
I could stand outside your window and let off fireworks.
Yeah, why not? Or you just need to be to reproduce the cinema experience. You need to be at the back, and when Tom Baker's voice appears, you need to yell, "It's Tom Baker!"
Or my cinema experience, actually dress up as Tom Baker and keep firing off my sonic screwdriver every couple of minutes.
That's quite irritating.
Seriously. There was a guy in the fucking audience dressed as Tom Baker, and he had a sonic, and I was like,
I think stoned to death with jelly babies would be the appropriate punishment. I'm looking forward to revisiting that one and seeing what my partner makes of it, because this is the first time she's seen any of New Who. Although she did watch Jodie's first season with me, I think. That'll be retreading that ground when we get there. That didn't
put her off?
Well, we got all the Capaldi to go in the meantime. And then, so probably by the time we get back to Jodie's, there might even be the new third season.
Yeah, well, you never know. See what might happen.
A man is the sum of his memories, a Time Lord even more so.
Let's move on into the body of the podcast. So it is time for the section we call Your Cheatin Memory. And this is where we randomly select an old episode using the randomiser.net, which is a lovely website that just randomly generates Doctor Who story for you. We go and rewatch it and then come back full of fresh insights, or at least hackneyed old opinions that we're just peddling again. And last time, long, long ago, we selected the Unicorn and the Wasp.
That is one of the funnest romps, and with a capital R.
Full blown on the rompometer.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a rompavision, as it were.
Shortly before it came up, I'd seen a clip of it somewhere, which was the scene of the Doctor trying to cure his poisoning, and it's pure comedy. It's
fantastic.
You got the charades as he tries to indicate what he needs, and you got Donna's comedy guesses to what he needs, and then just the physical comedy of gulping down. It's just wonderful. So Agatha Christie is. It sort of takes, I think, the real events of this mystery of her disappearing for a few days and weaves a kind of sci-fi tale around them. And just it treads a lovely line for a kind of, I suppose it's a pseudo-historical, isn't it? Because
and it's sort of weaved in that, making it a sort of Agatha Christie type mystery anyway.
Yeah, so it sort of plays with the form as well.
Library and all that sort of thing.
There's this beautiful, funny moments of "I called you all here for this" and that kind of thing. Of
that denouement at the end, is sort of the Poirot thing, or Miss Marple, where so he killed him. No.
Also, when the suspects are being interviewed and the Doctor goes off into a flashback and gets pulled out of it.
I mean, they all sort of do the flashback. The bit with the Colonel, where he's sort of supposedly going over old memoirs of campaigns in India.
Or is he looking at saucy postcards?
Saucy monthly or something. The only way I can sum it up is fun, pure fun. But this is what I find, especially from that era. I mean, we've got some really recently, just actually a few days after New Year, I watched Partners in Crime on the Tweet Along, and I mean, that's such a great, funny episode anyway, and it's possibly one of the best first episodes, as it were, of the season. You got the adipose, obviously, and Donna and the Doctor's interaction, missing each other all the time. Really good. Then you've got Pompeii and Planet of the Ood, and I'd say, out of the two, Planet of the Ood's quite a tragic story, but there's a lot of really good bits in it. Same with Pompeii, there's a lot of fun, but a lot of tragedy. But that entire season, I think, is is dominated by the two main leads, Tennant and Catherine Tate, because they work so damn well together.
Yeah.
They are the chemistry is electric on screen. They're funny, and when it requires it to be sad, it's sad, and they complement each other so much, and I think that's what makes it so enjoyable. That is possibly that season and season 10 are possibly my two favorite seasons of New Who.
It's made me think of something, which is that maybe, again, something that's lacking at the moment. And again, perhaps because it's been spread too thin, is that kind of deep interaction between Doctor and companion, and just sparking off each other, whether that's whichever direction that goes in with Yaz. I really hope to get, for want of a better term, quality time as the two leads of the show.
Yeah, totally.
And a good chunk of the script to allow them to develop that way.
I mean, I remember thinking at the time, that it would be great if it was just Jodie and Bradley Whittaker, because, he was really sort of pulling out all the stops, and I thought there would have been great banter between these two, and it was because you had the other two, everything had to be spread thin, like you say.
No,
and
absolutely.
it would, I mean, I'm quite up for Maddie Gill. I'm hoping that the two of them get a bit get to develop a bit more in this coming season, because again, that is the thing. You can basically get away with silly stories, or sometimes not particularly great stories, if you have two charismatic leads who make it work. I mean,
I think the writing was very strong with Tennant.
Oh, of course.
Tate,
but
so.
you look at some Tom Baker stories which are absolutely awful. Let's say Creature from the Pit, which is pretty awful, but Tom Baker being Tom Baker, hams it up, makes it work a bit. I think exactly. He's having fun, so you're having fun. Even if it's a bit of shit. Let's say, most of season 17, is not particularly great, but Tom Baker, Douglas Adams, the two of them are getting pissed, making up ideas and having fun, so therefore it sort of extends itself onto the screen. And this is, I think, been slightly forgotten within Chibnall's era. He does seem to have a problem with making it fun. I mean, you could have had something, let's say, I can't remember the name of the episode, that's how bad it's getting, but the Pating episode, you had a really silly looking villain. Now, he went down the road to try to keep it all serious, even though he's throwing in pregnant men and whatever. They could have just hammed it up on that one, made it a bit, played to the silliness. And I think it would have been a lot better, actually. But, maybe, I don't know, it's that Doctor Who fan thing of being afraid of, being too silly so it's not going to be taken seriously. But I don't think it's strong enough to be taken seriously at the moment somehow.
Interesting. Do you have any other thoughts on Unicorn and the Wasp?
Oh, yeah, we got away from that.
Just a little.
I like all the performances in it. I think the priest villain, he's quite good.
It's all perfectly cast, isn't it?
Yeah, and Felicity Kendall. Look, it's got Felicity Kendall in it, and you will not say a bad word about Felicity Kendall. She's sweetly pretty.
So. I think the other joke we made when watching it was it's got that great moment of the female jewel thief being revealed and suddenly dropping her posh accent in favour of the kind of... and it's straight out of Mitchell and Webb, isn't it? She's doing the nasty voice.
Yes. It's so brilliant. Oh, Freddie.
Yeah.
We could have been laughing together.
I challenge you
I
to
love
find
it.
a rompier New Who episode than that.
Oh God, yeah. I think that is sort of like the crowning glory, as it were, of romps.
The summit of Mount Romp. Okay.
They're all wearing romper suits.
Oh dear.
Look, when I give the word, press the button. The big one? Yes, maybe it works in conjunction with the others.
So let us fire up the randomizer and choose something new to go away and watch and come back in hopefully less than 6 months.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's try and find out. Now, what could it be?
Nightmare in Silver. I've watched that so recently.
I haven't watched it for a while, and yeah, I'm okay with that. Oh, I genuinely had in my head, oh fuck, it's going to be the Timeless Children.
Maybe I should edit that in. No,
Yeah,
I mean, the randomizer loves Matt Smith. We know this.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, don't we all?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, I've watched that very, very recently. In the rewatch with my partner, we've gone from Nightmare in
I like
Silver.
Jenna Coleman as well, so Jenna Coleman's in it. I'm perfectly happy with
Hey,
it.
Warwick Davis, and the two kids are good in it as well. I think that you kind of feel the jeopardy quite well.
Right in it, although, as I say, it suffers from that thing where fandom hates children.
That's super used to be
All
them.
fandoms hate children, you know.
Well, it's
Look
always
at
an
Loki.
edgy one with a child actor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which might bring us on in a short moment to Tangent of the Week, where, well, we will be discussing Red Dwarf, but we have another new program to discuss.
Oh,
Talking of bad child actors, but we'll hold that one over, maintain some suspense, and we'll come back to that shortly. But let's just talk briefly about Nightmare in Silver, and then we will go away and watch it.
okay.
Actually, if it does take us 6 months to make another episode, then I'll probably have forgotten.
Probably. Well, it's Neil Gaiman.
Yes, second one he wrote, wasn't it?
Second one he wrote. Not as successful, say, as his first one, I suppose.
I prefer it to The Doctor's Wife, I would say.
Yeah. Wow.
I think so.
Okay. I think it's okay. I think the problem I had with it was too many Cybermen.
What do you know? Just like one?
I kinda wanted it to be Dalek, if you know what I mean, with one Cyberman. The kind of the way they done Diodorati, I suppose. I liked the fact that they were sort of silent. I quite liked the Doctor battling with himself. I thought that was
very good.
As I say, I don't think it's the best one I've watched, but you know, I thought there was some really interesting ideas. Clara's good anyway. Warwick Davis is great. I really like that, and I like the resolution of it. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what it reminded me of. There was something that it reminded me of, but sort of Scooby-Doo in a lot of ways, you know, an abandoned fairground.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I thought it was okay, and nice sort of take on like the Turk, you know,
Yes, the
sort
mechanical
of
Turk.
automaton thing. But yeah, fun in general.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Beautifully shot, I think, and I think there's always that tension with the children coming along of, it's going to be, you know, that responsibility, and you know, I think Clara maybe lets the doctor off a bit lightly in terms of him sticking around when they were all set to go, but you know, otherwise short episode. But I think Warwick Davis is brilliant in it, and really that character development and that kind of quiet resolution. The only bum note in the whole thing for me is his weird proposal to Clara right at the end. Just out of the blue, just says, "Will you marry me?" And she's like,
well, maybe.
No.
I mean, maybe I'm just being forgiving to Neil Gaiman, but I suspect that was a sort of nod to old Doctor Who. You know how people randomly. I was watching Planet of the Daleks the other day.
I've just watched the Invasion of Time talking.
Yeah, and Joe Grant, the Thal, wanted her to go back to Scarrow.
Right, yeah,
you know,
that was quite a
marry-
well-developed plotline, though, compared with.
yeah, well, compared with Leela, yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, yeah, it just felt like in the old days, you had Susan with David, you had all these companions that suddenly just
married off,
decided they were going to, go away, with some random space bloke. So,
yeah, but there wasn't.
I thought it was
any seeding
maybe
of it at all.
little, maybe it was just a little sort of jokey nod to that.
I don't see where the punchline is there, because there's no.
I don't think there is a punchline. I think it's just, it's like that. What's happening? I'll explain later.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it just sticks out weirdly for me.
A bit more forgiving.
It just sticks out weirdly for me, that one. I don't understand where it comes from and what it serves as well, other than sort of slightly
good
taking the edge off
old-fashioned
of...
sexism.
What?
Good old-fashioned sexism. We're bringing it back.
I don't even see that it's that. It's just, he asks, she says no. It's like, why and what does it achieve? But that's a minor nitpick in an otherwise damn fine episode. So let's rewatch it and see if we can. I'll maybe watch it and look out for any signs of that, because I'd seen it before. I watched it recently, and but this time I can just look for any signposting of that.
I mean, as I say, it's a long time since I've seen it, so it'd be good to refresh my memory and actually sort of, because I hadn't really thought much about that, I suppose. But as I say, there'll probably be a hell of a lot in it that I've completely forgotten about. So.
Great. We will report back.
I don't have a sonic screwdriver because I'm not off on a romp. I call it what it is.
A great loss of pomp and circumstance.
Well, while we have the randomizer fired up, we're going to play a quick game of Romp and Circumstance, or Romp or Pomp, where I'll just click through a few random episodes and we will just quickly decide if these are rompy or pompy. So if we get the unicorn and the wasp, we win the jackpot.
What about Fires of Pompeii?
That's Pompeii.
Right. Okay.
I played a gig in Pompeii once. Tough crowd. Okay, here we go. First one. Tooth and Claw. It's sort of, quite a balance. Rompiness with the whole Queen Victoria bit.
A half and half.
Yeah, sort of first half romp, second half weird warrior monks and werewolves. Okay. 42. That's not very rompy. It's quite race against time.
Although they do manage to have a pub quiz in the middle of it.
I've forgotten that.
There's a lot of it chuckle.
Okay. The Idiot's Lantern.
Oh, that's Pomp. Romp. More. More.
Certainly, again, it starts off like a lot of New Who. It starts off all fun and games.
Boring?
Oh, harsh. I don't mind it. Okay, next one. Inferno. Well, that's Pomp.
Oh, that's definitely Pomp, I think.
Yeah, very doomy, gloomy kind of
trying to
end
take
of the world.
Very seriously. A quick thing, Don Houghton, he wrote an episode of Sapphire and Steel, and I believe he came from Helensburgh, which is close to where we are.
How exciting. Maybe it was an unduly hot summer in Helensburgh when he wrote in. Okay, let's do a couple more and then pack up the randomizer for now. Carnival of Monsters.
Oh, God, Romp.
Yeah.
And a brilliant Romp. I mean, I'm not a fan of Pertwee particularly, but God, that is a really good story.
That cyclical time thing fun. Mystery, which is played out lovely.
Yeah.
I do like a kind of story that sets up a world and then sort of it's not what you think. And it's that with Enlightenment, maybe.
Yeah,
the sea ship.
And also, Jo Grant is fantastic in that story. She's so much fun. She really is. Even
the Drashigs can't drag it down. All right, last one is Horror Fang Rock.
Oh, I'd say that's more Pomp.
Totally, atmosphere all the way.
It's a great adventure.
Rightly a classic.
Really clever. And also, we finally get to see who the fucking Rutans are.
All these corridors look the same to me.
I have been rewatching classic Doctor Who from the beginning, inspired by the books by Rob Sherman and Toby Haydock called Running Through Corridors. So I have got as far as the Invasion of Time, which is the end of the wonderful era of Leela. Rhys Jameson rather abruptly grabs Andrew by the hand and walks off into the Gallifreyan sunset with him. I always enjoy kind of exploring the TARDIS, and watching it now, it's kind of brutally shot on film, most of it, and it kind of doesn't feel internal, although they've got the hum in the background, so fair play.
I think you're like me, actually. I love TARDIS-based stories, something that uses the TARDIS. It's always fascinated me as a device. And I always thought that it's painfully underused.
I mean, it's horrendous padding, really, those scenes in the last few episodes, but I love it all.
I mean, I know they were limited by time and budget, so they basically just used a laser center. That story, having said that story starts off really good. You get this sort of idea with the Vardens and stuff, and then the real enemy is revealed in the Centaurs, and I really quite like that. I think it's generally a pretty decent story, hampered by being, as with most six-parters, 2 episodes too long.
The Vardens are very disappointingly kind of blokes in costumes when the shimmery foil effect disappears. They could have just kept them as shimmery foil and been much better for it. And I think something else that I realized was an odd choice or a non-choice was that they just have perfectly straight voices. They're not kind of affected or monstery or alien in any way. And maybe all to contrast them further with the Sontarans. It does feel like there's a bit of an imagination gap between who are these weird shimmery monsters and it's like 3 blokes talking in posh voices and Captain Emerald uniform.
Oh yeah, Captain Emerald.
You look like Captain Emerald.
I do remember, recently, when watching Skyfall, thinking that the shimmery...
You mean the James Bond film or Spyfall?
Oh, yeah. Jesus, again, I've done it.
Yeah, we talked about that. The kind of shimmery aliens had a Varden.
Yeah, I did think that they may actually be the Vardens. Obviously, they are.
There's a list of shiny aliens in Doctor Who. I guess you've got the Rutans on that list as well.
Not that many.
So it starts with the mystery of why is the Doctor acting nasty. And I think the problem is it's sort of Tom Baker acting kind of like the struggle of control and having to shut down becomes a bit flat. It's a good plot point when it's revealed that he can only relax in the kind of lead-lined room that he's arranged.
I like that.
It's clever. And I like Barusa's performance in Castellan, what's his name now? Kellner?
Is it? Oh, yeah.
So the Castellan is a nicely duplicitous, slimy, kind of double-dealing...
Oh, God.
Is it Milton Jones?
Milton Jones? Yeah.
Jones, I think, yeah.
John. I mean, he basically, the entire sort of 70s and 80s, that was he played that character.
He's a total quisling, basically.
Variation on that character, which was fine because he was absolutely brilliant at it.
Yeah, it's only, it just oozes with interest and charisma, and you kind of enjoy hating him.
Yeah, you've got Derek Dudman, is it? As one of the Sontarans. You remember the guy that was in...
Deadman. I was struck by that surname. It's quite ominous.
He was in Never Were Twain, with Don Sim.
Didn't recognise him.
But he was sort of like that broughty taught actor. I mean, and he was actually quite fun.
I suppose there's a thuggish logic to that with the Sontarans. Yeah. It's the first time we see outside of the capital on Gallifrey as well.
Oh yeah, the Shobogans. Yeah,
the Shobogans. I'm strangely fond. She's not a terribly well-developed character, but I'm strangely fond of Rodan, who's the kind of engineer or time barrier operator that Leela teams up with, and they get chucked out.
She was sort of, he's sort of a Gallifreyan bureaucrat.
Yeah, I like the actor, and I think once they were out of the city, then her role kind of became purely to be the reaction to the circumstances against Leela's kind of reveling in the wildness of the areas outside.
I think it's basically one of the only stories that advances Gallifrey storyline, really, because most of the time there's very little change within, or you don't hear or sense much about Gallifrey. It's
also the first breaking away from the idea of Gallifrey as a monoculture. So there's, I think they were Time Lords and turned away from that lifestyle is the sort of story. But a nice step away from your Star Trek cliche of everybody on the planet looking and dressing and sounding the same.
And like I say, if it lost a couple of episodes, it'd probably be a hell of a lot better. But you can say that with practically every six-parter, with the exception of Seeds of Doom.
Yes. So, and it's sad that Leela Reeves K9 stays behind, but the story ends on the Doctor gleefully pulling out a box marked
I
K9
remember
Mark II.
watching that at the time and being really excited.
Yeah.
I was really sad when K9 left. On reflection, I should have been sadder that Leela was leaving, but I was 8 or 7. So I've just been really excited that we had another K9 to look forward to and stuff.
Yeah. And just a moment of praise for Louise Jameson, whose performance was consistently strong, even when her script wasn't necessarily giving her the best situations. But
no, absolutely. I think it's really nice that because I've had a chance to reevaluate her as well. I always found her a really good companion, but I think watching her now, it surprised me how subtle and how brilliant she was. Her body language and her sort of subtleties, the sort of little subtleties and the subconscious stuff. You know what I mean? She was damn good, and she was probably too good for Doctor Who in a lot of ways.
Too good for that world.
No, she was great. And, I've not heard a massive amount of things like Big Finish and stuff with her. But anytime I have heard her, she's always damn good. And she's just a great actress in general.
Yeah, well, so that's Which Corridor Is This? And now I'm on to the Key to Time season next.
I mean, it's a bit of a challenge, and I can't quite see the solution yet, but that's life.
Challenge time. Now, you have had 6 months, my friend, since our last episode. So I fully trust that you have found a moment, a mere 90 minutes out of the many, many hours that have passed to watch The Mutants. For those who haven't tuned in before, Chaz has never seen The Mutants all the way through. Various things keep preventing him, and I've challenged him to watch it. And once he's watched it, it'll be my turn to accept the challenge. So tell me, how did you like it? What was the circumstances?
Well, you'll be pleased to know I have watched it.
I'm tentatively joyous.
Yep. And well, a few things surprised me about it. I didn't know that they had done, how at Day of the Daleks, they'd done the special edition, with new footage and everything.
Oh, with the effects upgraded and stuff.
Yeah. So they've upgraded it, right?
And I missed that version.
Yeah. And I happened to sort of come across it. Apparently, it must have been a promotion or something, but they were showing it in the cinema. So I was like, wow, So I went to see it, and it really surprised me because it is a lot more modern than I expected. And I didn't recognise John Pertwee in it much, but it was it's set in a sort of like a mental institution, and all these kids, right, have been sort of, they've been trained to use their mutations. So you get like one that can levitate, sort of fire out and stuff. Amazing Williams is in it. I mean, Jesus Christ. I thought she'd only appeared in New Who, but apparently
very young.
Yeah, I mean, well, she looked sort of age she was now. Huh. And I mean, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of a Marvel movie, but a sort of more horror take on a Marvel movie. I mean, it was bizarre. Yeah, it really was. Joe Grant, I think what must have happened is that the Doctor and Joe Grant must have been in disguise, and they were trying to infiltrate this group of mutants, but it wasn't really clear who they were during it. But it's a bizarre little story.
Got to clarify something. When they, upgraded all the special effects and so on, did they happen to rename it The New Mutants?
Yeah, but I just assumed that, it's sort of just to denote the fact that it was a special edition.
I think the only way to fairly discharge your obligation to this challenge is if you would go and watch the old unspecial edition for me. So I think back to it, mate. You might notice a few differences in the plot as well, and the characters, the locations, the budget.
I don't think that the idea of updating it is to take away anything from the original.
No, not at all. I think it would be fascinating to hear your thoughts describing the differences between.
Yeah, but surely they're keeping the same plot. They're just basically updating, peppering.
People will be astonished, I suspect.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, next week.
Oh, okay. Why not?
Could it have been affected by tangential deviation coming out of the warp ellipse?
What are you talking about, grease stain?
Tangent time. And as we have had a long break, it's quite a distant memory when we rewatched Red Dwarf seasons 5 and 6, but we know it so well that I suspect we can dredge up a few things to say about it. So let's talk first about season 5, controversially. And I'll just rattle through the episode names to jog our memories. So season 5 starts with Hollow Ship, where Rimmer is taken aboard a ship of holograms. The Inquisitor, Terror Form, Quarantine, Demons and Angels, and Back to Reality. And I got to say, some of my favorite of all the episodes ever are in this season.
Yeah, it's a very good season. Hollow Ship, basically, it's a ship full of holograms. Rimmer wants on board, can't get on board because he's technically not clever enough, and he has to take a sort of test and beat a member of the crew. It's a sort of love story with Rimmer, and for some reason, in all these years, I hadn't worked out it was Jane fucking Horrocks.
It looks very different. I think it was an early role. Yeah. I can double name drop on this episode because I have worked with 2 members of the cast. One is Jane Horrocks. I did a show called If You Kiss Me, Kiss Me at the Young Vic, where Jane was singing like the songs of her youth with a band on stage and dancers. It was very sort of strange, half gig, half show, but huge fun. And the other one is just a cameo. Lucy Briers plays Harrison, who is the hologram they're interviewing as the replacement for Rimmer. Decides that she's better off dead than joining the crew.
That is actually what. So you guys, get drunk and sort of eat curry. That is the entire.
It's like whatever you want to do, but it does sound like you eat a lot of curries. Yeah, it's a really lovely little scene.
So I take it you're not into Gymkhana. As long as it involves curry.
So Lucy was in a production of Showboat that I worked on in Sheffield. And just sort of noticed Red Dwarf on her biog and had to look up what her role had been. But I do love that little cameo. And then there's the guy that she's replaced with, whose name is Sam, but doesn't speak. I don't know if he was there a competition or some story behind him getting that cameo as a non-speaking part, but he just stands there and grins.
That could well be. I mean, I haven't heard anything about that. And I do love the fact that it's sort of like, it's all kind of based on the cheesy sort of films that Lister loves, he loves.
There's a bit of Star Trek in there as well.
Sort of Star Trek, and he kind of loves the whole sort of, dying on a beach thing. And
the sentimental ending.
And,
that lovely undermining at the end of Rimmer just goes, I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, it's a bit like me. I mean, I sort of share from the books Lister's love of It's a Wonderful Life and stuff. So, I am a sap for something incredibly cheesy, and sort of a sort of love will conquer all thing.
Don Warrington appearing as a character called Binks, who surveys the Starbug.
Bridgestone Enlightenment.
It's just like Lister starts
this steady hollow whip.
Yeah. There's a lovely outtake where just as he's about to attack him, Lister chews up his cigarette, and after the cut, Craig Giles just says, I don't know why I ate that cigarette. No, so The Inquisitor is another great episode, very clever timey-wimey plot. So time-traveling android appears people and tells them they've been judged unworthy of having lived, and then erases them from history. And then the pre-title, or at least the intro scene, he just appears in front of a random bloke, says, Thomas something or other, you have been found unworthy of having lived. And the character puts his glasses on and goes, is that you, mother? And there's a very clever kind of sort of payoff of Lister tricking the Inquisitor into erasing himself, and Crichton having to sacrifice himself. And
I kind of love also the fact that Rimmer and Crichton are deemed unworthy, but the cat and Lister, basically, they're sort of...
the cat and Rimmer, but by their own, yes, they're judged by themselves. That's the
yeah.
It's Like the cat comes out and goes, "This is justify your existence, buddy." He goes, "Well, I've given pleasure to so many because I have such a great ass." He goes, "Is that it?"
It is a rather fun one.
Top of the game, I think, the writers at this point.
And it's another good excuse to get another of Craig Charles's relatives into the show.
Oh yes, because he
it's another one. His
the
brother.
kid, is it?
Oh no! Wait a minute. What am I saying?
Oh, you're thinking of Time Slides with
I am actually.
Yeah.
Jesus, that shows you how bad it wasn't. Lister. It was Lister and Crichton. Yeah,
Lister and Crichton were getting erased,
and the cat are the ones whose existence is kept. So there you go. It shows you how fucking long it is.
Keyboard warriors everywhere have just paused in emailing Randomiser
Absolutely,
Podcast.
yeah. I've been cancelled already. I've just got to
so uncancel Chaz. Send a message out.
I've been erased.
You've been deemed unworthy. Next episode is Terror Form. It's I think it's not my favorite. It's still very good, very funny. It's a planet that conforms itself to Rimmer's mind, but it does have my favorite opening, which is Crichton in the wreckage, unscrewing his hand, sending it back to Red Dwarf, and then Lister thinking it's a spider crawling up his leg.
It is such a good little move, especially because you got Lister and the cat typing, and the cat sort of thing, go and get a potion of cat.
Playing that stupid game. And then when the cat clues it in, they both start typing, and he's like, sort of, "I'm terrified. You're terrified. How do you think I feel? You haven't seen it."
And then
a brilliant. Perfect payoff. The hand comes up and types hello.
Yeah, it is genuinely brilliant. And the other bit being when they realise what's happening on the planet, they all start hugging him and bigging him up, and and then sort of he's like going up, and then sort of he says something, and somebody sort of puts him down. Big man, hi, big man.
Yeah. It's like we have to go out there and be nice to Mr. Rimmer. Oh, that's sick.
Are you absolutely sure? It is quite sad. I always genuinely feel sorry for Rimmer. I know he brings it on himself a lot, but
it's particularly cruel, especially the payoff line when it's like, you didn't mean all that. Nah. Next is Quarantine, which is another corker of an episode, so well done. Mr. Rimmer kind of gets infected with the holovirus and traps the crew in quarantine. And there's that wonderful line about, it's like, traditionally all the favourite male pastimes have been ones they can enjoy alone, like fishing and walking, and of course the number one all-time favourite. And then they get out, and he's, of course, now in the gingham dress and has the puppet Mr. Flibble, who's just, it's amazing to me that Mr. Flibble was only ever in the one episode, because
we couldn't possibly do that. Who'd clean up the mess?
Just instant classic, very clever. And the luck virus and the sexual magnetism virus make a return to the series later, but they're just such clever ideas, and comedy gold, of course, that you can inject luck.
Oh God, what was it? Not the luck.
I think they're back in the red.
It was the one about 20th century virus.
The happiness virus or something. Yeah,
but I again, like you say, these sound silly ideas, but they're actually such brilliant concepts.
Yeah, I jump forward to the very recent episode, which had the 3D printer printing the crew of the spaceship, and it jams, so the guy comes out with a really distorted head. It's just such clever writing. So Demons and Angels is the 5th episode, where the triplicator backfires, and we get the ship full of highs and the ship full of lows.
You get the Rocky Horror version of Rimmer.
Oh my God.
I kind of love these ones where the crew get to sort of, rift on themselves.
It's a sort of parallel universe thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've got the saintly version, as it were.
That's their version of Inferno, with everybody playing their evil selves. It builds up to a great set piece when Lister is under remote control from the lows, and so he's able to tell Crichton. It's just got this great line of like, "Sneak up behind me! Somebody sneak up behind me! Surprise me now! Here comes my surprise, sir!" It's such a good season. This Back to Reality rounds it off magnificently.
That is a corker. really.
I've got a memory of the first time I saw this was with a friend from uni, I think it was. And I think he taped it. I hadn't seen it on broadcast. And we sat down and watched it. And when it's revealed at the end that they're hallucinating, there's one shot of them back in Starbug. And I said, oh, they're hallucinating. And my friend, I think, had missed the fact that I'd seen that shot and thought I'd worked it out and was all really impressed. And I don't think I corrected him quite as quickly as I should have. In fact, it's possible that I'm only correcting him now. So, if you're listening, sorry.
I would say if they wanted to use it as an end of series,
like a final,
it would have been quite a clever way.
That was the thought, wasn't it? I don't know if they'd been renewed at that point or if there was ever any doubt that they would do a 6th season. It's just very, very clever, sort of convincingly undoing everything we thought we knew about the program, and
it was also, it's a nice conceit, like Crichton says, about taking away Rimmer's reason for being Rimmer. He has all the advantages that Lister had. Lister didn't turn out like him, but then again, Lister's morals are compromised, and
there's a deeply...
it's just genuinely very good. And of course we get Dwayne Devlin.
Of course, who again returns later, an instant hit. I think that underneath the comedy framework is some really clever character writing.
Yeah. If they'd done more Red Dwarf novels, I think that's
that world
basis. There's an interesting parallel to that in Rick and Morty. There's an episode of Rick and Morty. I can't remember the whole purpose, but they go to like an arcade in space. Rick basically just wants to spend the day there, and he shoves Morty into this one called Roy, and it's an entire simulator of you start off as a kid, and then he's a football captain, then he goes to work at his dad's warehouse, gets cancer, survives it, and falls off a ladder.
So he has like a whole life.
Yeah, and suddenly Morty's going, "Where's my wife?" And it's all sort of like, Rick's going, "Holy crap!" He said, "You got to 56. That is the worst score." And Morty's still trying to work out what the fuck's going on.
There's an Ian Banks book, or an Ian M. Banks. I think it crops up in 2 of his books. Well, there's one called Transitions, where people inhabit other people's bodies. But also in, I think it's one of the plot lines in Walking on Glass, one of his early books, has this kind of room where you can stick your head up into a fishbowl and experience the universe, but zoom right into somebody else's consciousness and inhabit them. So I've seen it a few times. It's that kind of, I guess it's a spin-off from that kind of virtual reality matrixy kind of simulation idea.
They did do it earlier in Back Better Than Life. But in the book version, you don't know you're in a reality simulator. So, I mean, it's an idea that they had, visited before. And it is a great sci-fi idea anyway.
I never made that connection.
Because there's all that thing about, people say, well, are we actually just simulations or blah, 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 the usual something that's, if you've been smoking pot at 3 in the morning.
I think I'm not a very convincing simulation if I am.
Nah, not really. I mean, I wouldn't sweat as much for a start.
Let's rattle through season 6, because it's another good one. Quite different, I think. I'm not sure what had changed, but was that when they started using CG, maybe season 6?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Well, I'll tell you, the big change was Red Dwarf is not in it, so we are on Starbug the whole time, and Red Dwarf has been stolen, as we eventually find out it's by Crichton's nanites, but that's a good few seasons away yet. So Sirens has the return of Kachansky, briefly, albeit as a hallucination, and then a brief appearance by Anita Dobson, famous from EastEnders.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And,
Captain... whatever.
I can't remember, but she's not in it for long. But then, the siren itself, Jenny Agutter, of course, appears.
Right, yeah.
The scene, again, the set piece scene is where the 2 listers, one the siren and one not, have to prove who they are. And after various tests, it's the fact that the siren can play guitar that determines it.
Yeah. The sirens one is a sort of, it's very similar to Polymorph, that sort of idea.
The shape-changing monster.
This is the thing. I think this is why Red Dwarf can get away with repeating itself, because it does put an emphasis on the comedy. I think that's why in some later seasons, I was a little bit, the sci-fi is good and all that, but I think you should focus more on the comedy of
But
it.
that recent special definitely, I think, suffered from a bit too much plot. not quite like that, but the villain was a bit too nasty and didn't have that kind of comedy edge, I think.
Yeah.
But so Legion, second episode, Rimmer gets an upgrade to hard light from this mysterious being. Wonderful jokes about
Legion many.
I mean, that is such an overused thing. You could almost guess half the plot from just that name alone. But there's so many gestalts and so on.
Yeah, it's also like, it's overused, like you said, but it's also like my favorite line in sci-fi fantasy fiction, and also my most groanable line is "a storm is coming." You know, that line seems to just get overused so much, but.
The end of Terminator onwards. So what else happens there? Legion, they all have their kind of idealized rooms. It's like, welcome, Dave, this will be your cell. And it's this kind of luxury apartment. And to be honest, I think they should have stayed.
As psychos go, you're top notch.
I mean, I watched it again and I think they're just bloody idiots. You know, they're traveling through space into a bleak and, empty existence. Whereas, sure, Legion's keeping them prisoner, but, there's everything they could ever want.
I know. Well, I mean,
I suppose there's something noble about the human spirit there, but I just think
we kind of know they're bloody idiots. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true.
But isn't that the plot of the Matrix in some ways? No, because
the Matrix is realistic 20th century Earth. It's like shit and all.
But as they explain in the Matrix, the first Matrix was perfect. Everybody had what they wanted. But they all rebelled because they had this need to, for reality or for, for things
I don't know, mate. Sitting in the middle of a global pandemic and the second lockdown with our incompetent leaders leading us further down the rabbit hole, I would take a bit of perfection right now.
Well, there you go. But we've all got this sort of ridiculous need that, it doesn't matter how luxurious it is, we can't be locked up.
I don't know. I think there's that old kind of trope about better Socrates dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, and I'm just like, did anybody ask the pig?
I'm kind of with Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. It's like
in many ways,
I sort of think I'd be okay with a race of hyper intelligent aliens keeping me in a sort of a sort of prison-like state to just be their pet as long as it was luxurious and
So I think the question is free to do what? Because you come to the later series of Red Dwarf. I'm taking this far too seriously. You come to the later series, and Lister's like an old man sending himself drunken birthday presents from himself. It's there's something deeply disturbingly sad about that, and there really hasn't been any grand destiny short of jump starting the second Big Bang and all of that. I don't think we'll ever see that episode, but Gunman of the Apocalypse comes next. So this is
Riviera Key.
It's weirdly one that I kind of have a slight love-hate with. I certainly don't hate it. It's great.
I wouldn't say it's my favourite.
But yeah, and it won the Emmy, and it's kind of the one that everybody goes to. And I think perhaps it's just I've never been a huge fan of Westerns as a genre.
I think it's also because it's, what's the word? It's accessible for a lot of people. If
we like it niche.
Sci-fi can be, a lot of people can shy away from it. But you look at the most popular Star Trek film is The Voyage Home. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's set in the 80s, it's very much a comedy with the sci-fi element. This is a thing that people recognise, although it's got the sci-fi element. So that could be more of the reason.
But no, it's a great plot with this sort of computer virus infecting Crichton and watch my dreams. It's quite dramatic, that moment. I love just oh no, we've lost our special powers, and the hand clapping to try and exit becomes the dance, and just good fun. Dangerous Dan McGroove, Bear Strangler McGee.
I mean, they just recycled it into the plot of Jumanji.
Yeah, true. So Emo Hawk, we get the return of Ace and the return of Dwayne Dibley and the kind of mini-sized polymorph. This is the one where Lister has to get married. They have an oxygen regeneration unit, and they trade it for Lister's hand in marriage to one of the chief's daughters.
Oh, is that the Gelfs?
Yeah, it's the Gelfs.
Oh, right. Oh,
it's like Excuse me, darling, I'm going to slip into something more comfortable. It's called Starbug. Rimmerworld is episode 5, and this has a sort of weird sequel. They meet the ship that they destroyed in Gunman of the Apocalypse, and the rogue simulant appears. It has a lovely line where Lister thinks they've got away with it, and he gets caught
in hell.
When he says to the simulant, for a deranged mutant killer simulant, you're quite a babe. What are you doing tonight? And she goes, dying. Care to join me? It's a great line. World full of rimmers. The wonderful gag with the worry balls that have been ground down to tiny pea-sized balls over the years. And the last of season 6, probably my least favourite of season 6, is Out of Time, where they meet their future selves after finding a time machine.
It's not a brain in a jar.
There's a brilliant gag. I think the episode peaks too soon. There's a great gag. They fire up the time machine and find themselves in late Renaissance deep space because they haven't moved. It's not a space machine. And so it's the kind of logical and retrospect thing. It's like, oh yeah, we've only travelled in time. The future selves being so unremittingly horrible doesn't really have a comic payoff beyond the laugh at the baldness and so on.
Crichton looking like fucking... Robert Redford in the 70s. It is vaguely amusing, but again, it's another one that the humour is not particularly brilliant in.
Yeah, but that's the end of season 6, and for next time we will watch 7 and 8.
What's happening? You're becoming one of us. Who's us? The Tomorrow People. The Tomorrow People.
Other tangent for the week, 2 tangents because you've had to wait so long for one. So Chaz persuaded me, since it came on BritBox, to watch his favourite programme, and I was frankly shocked when he didn't mean Doctor Who.
Well, my favourite programme of all time, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, the same way I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a recovering Pepsi Max addict.
You're not recovering.
Okay. I'm not recovering. I'm a functioning Pepsi Max addict. That's the word. But no, my favourite TV show of all time is The Tomorrow People. Now, The Tomorrow People, as my mate Darren once described it, as the Psychor with bad hair and flares. It's basically a bunch of kids who break out. And they become sort of like the next stage of human evolution. They have telepathy, telekinesis. They can, they call it jaunt, which is teleport, all the T's. They have a supercomputer who lives in the ceiling.
What's he called?
Tim. Yes, Tim, you are a supercomputer that lives in the ceiling. And they basically sort of protect planet Earth while not being able to punch or hit anybody or defend themselves in any real way other than they have a stun gun, but even then they have difficulty. The effects are fucking terrible. The acting is pretty abysmal. The scripts are laughable, and it is just fucking wonderful. I love it. It is just a beauteous marriage of awfulness. And if you watch it and listen to the commentaries, you will never stop pissing yourself.
I'm going to have to work up to the commentary side of it, but we've been watching it side by side in BritBox, a couple of episodes at a time. So I'm through the first. It's a similar format to Doctor Who in that you've got stories that last a bunch of episodes. They're the similarity
that in a minute.
It really is. It's really bad, but I'm enjoying the badness. It's not so bad it's good. It doesn't quite reach that height or depth, but it's just clumsy, I think is the big word. That
really
and the big thing is, unlike Doctor Who and other sort of fiction that was for family audience or children specifically, it talks down and it's kind of really kind of po-faced and takes itself far too seriously. But I'm enjoying it. It's something I've never seen. I had escaped it my whole life.
Don't get me wrong, there are some good stories in it, and I think,
When do we get to those ones?
Yeah, I mean there are some genuinely good stories, but they're not that often. There's usually the story's pretty weak and the acting, etc. But there's something. It's definitely a nostalgia thing with me. I mean, I used to, finish school and get home and be on, and it always felt quite special. It's a bit like other shows of that era, like Into the Labyrinth, which if you were to rewatch it now, you think, oh my God, this is fucking awful. But
I remember that so far. I daren't rewatch it.
Yeah, again, it's that it's got that nostalgic grip to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the leads. I like John and Stephen. I think what they were the sort of
better
the
actors.
Two leads I remember very well. Again, as the show goes on, you get more people coming in. The first series or so has two other kids in it. One's called
the memorable one.
Oh my God, I can't even remember.
Favorite program.
Oh, what's their fucking name? Sullivan Mills.
Well, Carol is the
Carol,
God,
and Kenny.
Kenny.
It has two.
I couldn't remember either, but I haven't loved it for years.
Right. It has two other kids in it, and that's Carol and Kenny. Now, Carol, played by Sammy Windmill.
Great name.
Yes, well, it's very apt. She is a flaky fucking cook who basically just says, I think her entire ethos in the show is to sort of get everybody down, join hands and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah, just to clarify, that's cook with a K at each end, not celebrity chef.
Yeah. And the other thing is she's kind of like that in real life, because I attended a convention many years ago, not a specific Tomorrow People one.
Are there such things?
Yeah, well, there probably is. She happened to be at it, and there was a big grand prize draw, raffle thing, and the thing she contributed was some of her own home baked bread, and then at one point she wanted all the audience to hold hands so that we could all experience being Tomorrow People. I felt I was being indoctrinated into a cult. But I'm sure she's a very sweet person, but she's utterly mental.
I think her character, her performance is the most off-putting.
Jesus.
The others are kind of all enjoyably po-faced.
Yeah. But then, of course, you have Kenny. Now, Kenny was apparently, the actor, was seen by or spotted by the creator, I think, on the street. The creator of the Tomorrow People, there's many, many stories about him that I won't go into, but basically the kid that they got had never acted, and it shows. Even against the two that are there, it really does show. But the other thing being that apparently during filming every time they were filming a scene and stuff and he wasn't in it, they would come back to the locker room or whatever, and there'd be money and things missing. So he was basically apparently robbing everyone while he was on set. So there's so much gossip behind the scenes. It's hilarious. They've got these two henchmen in the first story.
And I noticed that the kind of boss of the henchmen in the first story actually refers to them as the henchmen.
The henchmen, yeah, exactly. You could actually argue that Roger Damon Price, the sort of lead sort of get with the showrunner, is a sort of an early version of Christopher Nolan. Because in the latest Christopher Nolan movie, Tenet, the main guy is called the protagonist.
Really? That's exciting.
I swear to fuck.
It's very meta.
Trust me.
Spoilers, I haven't seen it.
Don't. It's awful. Yeah, they're called the henchmen, Ginge and Lefty.
Lefty and Ginge.
Seriously, what the fuck? And the thing is that I think it's the guy that plays Ginge. He played a character in Emmerdale called Eric Pollard, I believe.
Right. I'm warming to him, actually, as a character.
Yeah, he's actually okay as it goes along. He's a bit
low bar.
Yeah, but he's about the best actor of the lot.
Yeah.
He was also the guy that blew the bloody doors off.
In the Italian Job.
Yeah. He's the one that Michael Caine shouts at. So.
There's a claim to fame.
Yeah, well, you know.
Now, if we compare him up with the guy who pointed a bloody spear at Michael Caine, then we've got a double act.
Oh, yeah. It's ludicrous in itself, but it is just, there's something about it, and it must be nostalgia, because it's the only thing I can work out about it, that why I like it. But I sit and howl every time I watch it. Now, I don't think we've came to it, but I have given you a bit of warning about a particular episode. It ends on the cliffhanger, and then you always used to get it in Doctor Who, you get a small reprise of what's happened.
Sometimes not so small.
Yeah, well, this particular episode that we will eventually come up upon, the episode length is roughly about 23 minutes, which is more or less what most shows were. And the reprise, I believe, is about 17 or 18 minutes.
I can't believe when you told me this. I can't.
I know.
I'm eager to see it.
The reason for it is they didn't have enough plot to fill it up, so they literally...
See, Doctor Who, you don't need to spend 2 episodes walking through a swimming pool. It's like...
This is why, when people say about cheap and cheesy in Doctor Who, I think you have no fucking clue, because, you watch an episode of that, like, say, they go on about, say, cardboard sets. This thing was literally fucking cardboard sets. There are several episodes where you see explosions going off, and you sort of see how close they are to the actors.
Yeah.
Well, the actors genuinely were terrified of the special effects, because, several of them got injured by, something going off, or hair singed. It was just a really amateurish production. But like I say, it's car crash TV, and I could watch it ad infinitum.
I'm enjoying watching it along with you. I think if it was just me, I wouldn't continue, but it's quite fun to just potter through them.
Yeah, it is definitely a show that I think the only way to watch it is with someone else. And if you want to make it really interesting, make it into a drinking game as well. Take a shot every time Tim says, "I'm sorry, John."
Every time they jaunt, every time somebody says something like they're reading it off a board on the other side of the room. Oh, my liver. It's very psychedelic in look. There's a lot of lava lamp sort of projected onto the scenery, a lot of quite dodgy CSO, but it's like none of that's why it's bad. It's more the fundamentals of sort of shaky performances and kind of po-faced patronizing scripts, I think, are the worst crimes.
And a lot of homoeroticism.
Well, the whole talk about like breaking out instead of coming out. There's definitely. Sci-fi always has a kind of campness to it, but we are spotting a lot of potential gay metaphor, given that it was the 70s.
For a show that's basically a children's show, there's a lot of men in their pants.
Well, I've yet to see those episodes. Although we have got to the space.
We did see the sort of stuff, with Stephen.
I'm holding out for Peter Davison, though.
Oh, yeah. And his
I know he's in it. That was the first I'd heard of it. Was a friend of mine used to draw things, and it was a very good artist. And he had drawn Peter Davison in his pants from that episode of Tomorrow People, which somehow didn't persuade me to watch it at the time.
The beauty of that particular story is it's called A Man for Emily. But I won't give you any spoilers for it, because I know you're sort of bated breath waiting to watch it. When we do get around to watching it, the DVD has the audio commentary and Peter Davison guests on the audio commentary.
Yes, you mentioned this. It sounds like fun.
Jesus, that's brilliant.
I think, it might take a couple more years before I feel like going back to the beginning and watching with the commentaries, but we'll see.
Predictable as ever, Doctor. You shall die for this.
last section before we wrap it up.
Jesus, there's more?
There's more. We have to do Doctor by Doctor. Now, we have been randomly selecting a Doctor from all of the Doctors and discussing their era. Simple as that. However, there's not so much random because we started in episode 2. We have covered 13 Doctors, and this is now time for the final one from the box
You
of
don't
Doctors.
need me to sort of shake the box randomly.
Well, even as I say that, we did a alternative Doctors one, so the numbers don't add up. Anyway, I think we only have one left, but let's check the box of docs and see.
I have no idea what the box of Doctors is.
It's all right, I have notes. I will consult my notes. So, all right, just to build up some fake tension, we have done, in order, 13, 12, 8, 1, 6, 7, 11, alternatives, 5, 2, 4, and 10. So we haven't done 9. So it's either Pertwee or Eccleston. Should we toss a coin if we don't have the box?
Sure, we haven't done Eccleston.
We haven't done Eccleston. That's why the numbers weren't adding up.
Right.
Oh.
Okay, we'll toss a coin then.
You got a coin? I don't have a coin.
All right, I've got a sort of supermarket trolley thing. So.
All right, but are they the same on both
sides? All right, smiley face or supermarket trolley.
Oh, trolley. Now we should decide what means what, though.
Oh, fuck.
We're a real Mickey Mouse operation, aren't we?
Mickey Mouse? We ain't even Betty Boop.
Well, right. John Pertwee is more of a supermarket trolley than the smiley face, right?
Yeah, the sort that you find in a sort of...
in a canal.
Okay, so
Pertwee
smiley
trolley.
face Pertwee. No, sorry.
Smiley face Eccleston.
Smiley face Eccleston? Really?
That's what his mates call him.
Okay, it's the supermarket trolley.
So it is Pertwee. Woo!
Yay! There you go. There's the name of the episode. John Pertwee is the supermarket trolley.
No, than smiley faced Eccleston and Pertwee trolley. I mean, it's a better nickname than the Tory Doctor, so we know.
Yeah, but it's not as apt. When you think about it, this episode is going to be very polarising for our friend Alistair T. Mills because he has a bit of a love affair with John Pertwee. So much so that he apparently dug him up, stuffed him, and he's now in his merchandise room.
It wouldn't surprise me. I've seen pictures of his merchandise room. Well, we met Pertwee. Were you there when The Ultimate Adventure was running in Glasgow? Because basically, the Doctor Who group at the time approached the King's Theatre in Glasgow and said, hey, can we put on an exhibition in your foyer? Which was basically an excuse to hang around the theatre.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up in the first night party.
Yeah.
Loads of the cast and the actors, including John Pertwee and David Banks, who was in it.
I wasn't in the group. I was, let's say, about a month away from joining, but I had seen The Ultimate Adventure and stuff, so you know, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much.
I think we're starting with Pertwee's final Doctor Who, aren't we? If we're talking about The Ultimate Adventure. I have this memory of that first night party of walking down the stairs to the foyer, just behind John Pertwee, who was walking down, and on the wall we had a picture of Roger Delgado, and he just sort of tickled his moustache and muttered, "Dear old Rog," which I thought was very sweet.
Okay, I remember actually reading that in one of the Paisley patterns.
Yeah, I probably wrote it down because it struck me, at the time. It was, I mean, I mostly had eyes only for David Banks at that point because I was on such a Cyberman kick, and it was just when David Banks had published his Cyberman book. But no, it was great,
like
and
Banks a lot.
Pertwee was very patient with all of us fans, pestering and like sort of pigeons or pecking around him all the time, and the stage play itself was just a hoot, really great fun. Yeah, very silly and musical.
I think I've been I admit I've been very sort of cruel to Pertwee over the years.
not interpersonally, we should clarify.
No, but, digging. Just sort of his interpretation. I still can't say I'm warm to it, which is sort of ironic because he is the Doctor, my first Doctor. I remember third. Yeah. But he's the first Doctor I grew up with. I remember, a lot of his stories quite, reasonably well in my memory.
You said that your earliest memory is the repeat of the Sea Devils. Right, of Doctor
Who. And the paradox is, I enjoy Pertwee's stories. I find them very comforting and cozy because it always felt like a very comforting, cozy era of Doctor Who. Yeah. But Pertwee himself, I never found as appealing.
Of course, the Unit era, Marooned on Earth, and the Brigadier, all of that kind of stuff.
They all became, the sort of the family, didn't you? I mean, we go on about the fam.
The first fam. That's a sort of ensemble show for a while then, isn't it? On and off.
It very much is, you know, because although Pertwee's a star, he's definitely, they're all co-stars, you know. I mean, a regular, you've got Nick Courtney, you've got...
And Delgado was part of that as well.
Delgado was part of... I mean, you know, that era invented the Master, arguably the best of all the Doctor Who villains. I know it's overused.
Certainly the best of all the Doctor Who Masters.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Classic, undisputably.
Missy's definitely a high point. But yeah, I mean, the classic...
This is charted very well by the Running Through Corridors book. Because they sort of chart the progress of the unit family from, you know, quite sort of gritty, hard-bitten, serious soldier types, and then the sort of descent into the coziness of the kind of comic routines of Benton and the Brigadier.
I think I also remember Terence Dix saying something similar. You could kind of tell where you were in the era by the size of John Pertwee's bouffant.
It's like Shatner's stomach for Doctor Who.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of gets campier and sillier the bigger the bouffant gets.
Spearhead from Space is one of the first stories that was out on VHS, I think. It was quite an early release. So I've seen it a ton. Of course, the first colour story, the scene of the shop window dummies breaking out and massacring the passers-by, which, of course, Russell T Davies looked to relaunch the show.
You think about it, you know, you've ended the black and white era, right? You'd ended it on low ratings. There was a possibility Doctor Who wasn't coming back. So the event, you know, the BBC give it another chance, bring it back, and it's like a complete reboot, a sort of soft reboot of the show. And RTD saw what they'd done there and thought, you know, this is actually a really good way to reintroduce the show.
Yeah.
So you have something very familiar again that is frightening, that you make frightening to kids. Yeah. I mean, later in the series, they had with the policemen and Terror, the Autons, they had the questions in Parliament, should you make policemen look frightening?
I think it's a great, strong first season. I haven't seen Silurian so often. Is it the only one that has Doctor Who in the title, Doctor Who in the Silurian?
Yeah, I do believe so. It's got some good, I mean, you've got Jeffrey Palmer in that one.
Yes, of
course. You've got Hilton Mackay. You know, you've got a pretty good guest cast. See, I mean, that's a sort of a virus that, you know, they sort of set off this virus. And this is what I was saying about the likes of Praxeus, you know? There's so much similarity here that really you just had to introduce Sea Devils, some Silurians, whatever.
You wanted a force behind the virus. Yeah, the Jeffrey Palmer scenes are really quite horrific and very sort of reminiscent of some of those like post-apocalyptic, the start of any zombie movie or whatever.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, that entire season is a lot more, I mean, it's an anomaly in the Pertwee era because it's a lot more gritty than anything they ever did afterwards. And it's very much as it were at the time, I believe, they were sort of trying to give the sort of Avengers stroke Quatermass vibe.
A bit of the action sort of.
You know, because you've got Liz Shaw, who's very much in the Emma Peel type mode, and the science is, you know, the sci-fi is very apocalyptic, you know, Quatermass type. You look at Ambassadors of Death, and it's very much like Victor Caroon in Quatermass 2 and stuff.
I only saw that one for the first time in my linear watch through.
Yeah.
So, I've literally only seen it the once, and that was not that long ago. But Inferno, I've seen hundreds of times, I think, and love it so much. It's 7 parts, but doesn't drag because of the parallel universe.
I think it's the only one that doesn't. I think the rest... See, again, with Doctor Who, they do have a tendency to pad. Most of those 7-parters you could have easily done in 4 because of the switch to colour. Yeah. So you talk a lot of money there. So by making those all 3 7-parters, you're saving money on sets and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I've got a sort of hankering love for over-padded Doctor Who sometimes. You know, I know it's too much, but again, there's a coziness to it, you know? You feel like you could sit down a Sunday afternoon and watch the whole
I totally agree.
And it would just, you know, you could have your sandwich and your cup of tea and just be enjoying yourself.
I mean, it's all pinned around the VHS releases for me, because those stories are the ones I watched over and over, kind of like the Cushing films. Why don't we, I don't think we have time to sort of talk through every story, but why don't we jump to a few favorites? I know you'll want to talk about the mutants, of course. But I mean, in the next season, Terror of the Autumn's Mind of Evil, Claws of Axis, Colony in Space, Demons. What's your highlight there?
Oh, geez, that is difficult because nearly every story in that season, I'd say with the possible exception of Colony in Space, they're all great. They really are. I mean, that's the season that introduced the Master, who's 50 this year. That's the season that's coming out on Blu-ray in a couple of months.
Yes.
It is a really fucking great season. There are so many good ones. I really like Terror of the Autons.
I haven't seen it that often.
Terror of the Autons, because you've got the Master, you've got a returning villain,
and creepy daffodils and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good stuff. Mind of Evil, the most similar to season 7 out of all the other Doctor Who stories. It's got a season 7 vibe to it. And there's, the Master, a peace go. It's a typical unit Pertwee story. There's a peace conference being threatened, blah, 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 blah.
Well, that Prison Break, sort of, those scenes are quite brutal.
I mean, there are some really, and it's an interesting plot, the Keller machine, etc.
Yeah. Day of the Daleks, Curse of Peladon, Sea Devils, Mutants, and Time Monster. So, I mean, Day of the Daleks, VHS, watch and watch and watch. Circular time plot, what's not to like? Who's it? Aubrey Johns is the controller in the future?
Yeah.
Great performance.
Here's the interesting thing. Now, Day of the Daleks, like you say, it's really good on its own. It was never one of my favourites, but when they did the special edition and they actually really went to town on this, they actually filmed new scenes, and I was very, very sceptical about this. Watched it, and it instantly became, to me, utterly brilliant. It just, because of the love and care that was put into it, you can tell that the person that had done it wasn't going to, just sort of, okay, everybody's got fucking plasma grenades now, and this and that, and, we're going to the Starship Enterprise up here. They'd done it lovingly, and it was so in keeping with the whole original look.
Yeah.
And they did the one thing, because it's always the thing I mention about this story that is hilarious, where how the Daleks speak really, really badly in this one, and they got Nick Briggs to re-record them.
Oh, really?
That was great. But they kept in my favourite thing about it, and that was the Ogrons who suddenly leap about 200 IQ points in one scene. So Dalek goes, "Have you seen where they are?" And he says, "No, we followed them into the tunnel, but we couldn't see them. Well, were there any complications?" "No complications."
You just need to CGI in like an Oxford Dictionary of
so
phrases.
Fucking, it's just like the two moments. It's just utterly
Ogron t-shirt and no complications.
No complications.
Your report?
We found and destroyed the enemy.
Any complications?
No complications.
Absolutely love it.
What to say about the mutants that you haven't already covered in detail?
Everything's been said about that one.
Yeah. I think let's talk about season 10. Starts with the anniversary special, the 3 Doctors.
Oh yeah, 3 Doctors.
Of course, wow. It's a romp and a half. And
it definitely is. And obviously the first time the show's celebrating its own past.
Yeah, well, or at least explicitly with multiple Doctors.
Yeah, nothing to dislike about it. The gel guards are absolute classic.
I was thinking it would be lovely to have a model of them, but then I just thought I'd wait until I got a bad cold and
there is actually models of them available.
Yeah, of course there is. It's like
obviously.
It's like leftover blue tack.
Nice to see Hartnell back great to see Trout, and got Trout and quoting the Beatles.
That amazing moment of the unit HQ disappearing into the black hole is just a lovely ending as well.
And of course, fairly sure that's Cromer.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the end for the Brigadier's any sort of serious figure, isn't it? It's like, what else we got? Planet of the Daleks, which you said you just rewatched.
I did actually. I caved in and bought the Time Lord Victorian Blu-ray with a really cheap cash in. I don't know, but I mainly bought it because I like the cover.
According to what you told me, there's no extras. There's no difference.
No extras. In fact, the stories that have got updated effects, the updated effects aren't even on this. It's that cheap, but I enjoy, I don't, for some reason I didn't mind, and I really liked it, and I enjoyed Planet of the Daleks, and I have always said that the Dalek army that has been entombed on Spiridon should be revived at some point. We could do Tomb of the Daleks.
Yes.
Or these Daleks suddenly appearing out of the ice.
Fantastic.
We've got Sea Devils, Return of the Master again, Introduction of the Sea Devils, the story that sort of, I suppose, set me off, made me terrified of string vests. My granddad coming out of the bathroom in the morning with his string vest on made me scream and run back into
the other pointy lip and the big grey gun.
Absolutely, that was him.
Green Death, a great story. That season.
Great.
I want to talk about Death to the Daleks. So season 11, Time Warrior introduces Sarah Jane, who's an amazing breaking companion. Death to the Daleks, though, was another of those VHS releases. I think it's not got a brilliant reputation, but I love it. I'm just really fond of that story. And it's got that kind of puzzle, sort of labyrinth ending, which I was a sucker for.
Yeah, they also had that in Pyramid of Mars, but they had the good sense to sort of say, "Oh, just like City of the Exelon." So
that's what's called lamp shading.
But actually, I liked the Exelon guy that went room with Sarah. Can't remember his name.
Bilal or something.
So yeah.
I think he had a hit in 1985 with, can't remember. Let's talk about Planet of the Spiders, Pertwee's last story, not counting, of course, the 5 Doctors and the Ultimate Adventure and so on. But it's a really unique one, isn't it? The concept of regeneration is sort of unfolded in a new way.
It's quite good, actually, in that sense, because there is a lot of sort of, info dumps in it, I suppose. But it's done in quite a good way. I mean, that's sort of Barry Lett's Buddhism is definitely fucking front and centre throughout that entire story.
But the other big image is the spider on the back and that kind of a possession thing, which of course Resolution, last year's New Year's Day special,
and
really riffed on.
Turn Left.
Oh yes, with that kind of crab thing.
Yeah, it's a concept that's been revisited, and Pertwee kind of gets his swan song, with the gadgets and
the big chase and
all that. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to sort of dislike really in this one. You've even got Gareth Hunt with a handlebar moustache, which you should definitely have kept. I think the only thing that's sort of sad is that, as we know, with Roger Delgado dying, he was supposed to appear in this story. It was supposed to be the big showdown between the two of them, which I suppose would have changed the whole thing with the Master. But maybe not. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think it would work with Roger Delgado sitting on John Pertwee's back like that.
He'd have been like Yoda on Mark Hamill. But I mean, it's a bit of a shame, but I think it's a nice swan song, especially for Pertwee. He really, he deserved it. I mean, no matter my personal feelings, he held the show together for 5 years, and he made it more popular. And by the time Tom, he left and Tom Baker came around, there was no chance of the show being cancelled. So, in total respect to him, he did the job, and he was a good Doctor. It's just, as I say, it's not my personal taste all the time, but his stories, with a few small exceptions, were always interesting.
Well, so that's a lovely way to wrap up.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.
9 times out of 10,
that is it for our storming return of episode 14 of the Randomiser Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And if you would like to send us any comments or feedback or just anything, give Chas some attention that he so craves.
Yeah.
Tell him what you thought of the New Mutants and persuade him to watch the old Mutants.
I'm 50 years old and I've been eating sherbet, so I'm
That's why you're doing cartwheels. So you can reach us at randomiserpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can reach us on Twitter at randomiserpod. And in both cases, that is randomiser with an S, not a Z. Thomas Adams. Oh, sorry.
So Chas has been given a grandfather clock for his...
I'll tell you the story in a second about my grandfather clock.
And its relationship to the shelf?
But I'm just waiting for it to stop so as I can continue telling. Right. So
we're going to have to edit all the shit out anyway.
I'll tell you quickly about the grandfather clock while we're here. Okay, so today is the 20th of January, which is Tom Baker's, I believe, 87th birthday. So happy birthday, Tom. I know you're a regular listener. So
not to us.
Not to us. So tomorrow is my birthday, the 21st January, and I'm going to be 50. Yes, I've survived that long. And I've been sort of hinting at a grandfather clock since I was more or less a teenager.
Since you're 25.
My son finally took the hint and managed to sneak a grandfather clock into my house.
To be fair to Connor, he probably didn't hear your hints when you were a teenager.
Well, probably not, yeah. But he managed to sneak this
Snuck it in the house.
Clock in. Yeah, he did. He managed to sneak the clock in and hide it for 2 weeks.
What did he tell you? It was a body or something?
Well, I didn't even know he'd managed to. He just said to me, "I've got some stuff to take in," so I kept the dog in one room.
Right.
But 20 minutes after he basically got it in, all that, the police came to the door, and they had reports of somebody with a torch at the back gate. Now this was really? Connor taking the clock in, and people thought it was like, and so I mean nothing clicked until he had to go back because he's a student teacher, so he had to go back down, and he sort of had an early birthday party for me with this big fucking clock. So I was like, holy shit. And so that's my grandfather clock, but suspiciously every time I walk past it, I sort of hear a new body at last.
So for your 60th, we'll get you a Doric column or an ionic.
No, I've already said for my 60th I want a full-size Dalek.
Okay. So, we were discussing for your garden that you should get a milker.
Oh, yeah. A milker so cool. And a weeping angel.
What I'm going to do is now I'm going to get you, a claim I misheard, I'm going to get you a Merca